Okay, so you need a pencil? There you go. Okay, so we're gonna start 2.5 today. We're gonna learn all the information today, and then tomorrow we'll do a lot of practice problems, okay? Because we have to make sure we get this down right and really good before we move on, okay? That's why we're gonna spend 2 days on it. We don't do a lot of stuff in 2 days, but this one for sure. Okay, so at any point you're confused or anything, just let me know. Okay, we don't want to make sure we get this all the way through. Okay, so it's 2.5. The title or topic is solving equations with absolute values. Okay, so now we're still solving some stuff, but we need to know what an absolute value is. Do you remember what an absolute value sign is or what it looks like? Close. It's not a parentheses. An absolute value sign looks like to me it kind of looks like a big old wall. It's two really long lines. I always make them the length of whatever the lines are on your paper. It looks like two really tall lines. I always make them, if you have like lined paper, right? I always make them as tall as my lined paper is so you don't get them confused with the number 1. Okay? That's why I do that. Okay? Does anyone know what it means? So this says absolute value of x. Does anyone know what it means? Close. Always, yep. Makes your answer, ooh, or makes your final answer positive. Okay, so if I say, what's the absolute value of 3? What's the absolute value of just 3? It's still just 3, right? Because 3 was already positive. So the absolute value is, once I take the absolute value of that thing, the signs are gone. It's just the number 3. If I say, what's the absolute value of -5? Jacoby, what's that going to be? Just 5, right? Because when we take it out of the absolute value, it's like, I always remember this way. When it steps outside the absolute value, like when you step out the door to start your day, you should be positive. If not, you'll never make it through life, right? You got to be a little enjoyable, right? Because if not, be a rough time. Okay, what about this? What if I have 4 and then absolute value and then -2 absolute value? I keep writing bigger. I can't tell you why. So first, what are we going to do, Jacoby? So first, we do the absolute value of -2, which turns it into +2. And then what are we going to do with the 4 and the 2? Yes, because this is right next to that. That basically turns this into parentheses, and you're going to multiply them. So then what is 4 times 2? So our final answer for that guy is just 8. Making sense? Okay. I'm going to throw a little negative wrench at you. I'm going to scoot this way. What if I say -1 absolute value, -3 absolute value? Again, always start in the parentheses, which is in this case the absolute value. What do we do first? Okay, so this turns into +3, but then what? Yeah, this is still negative. So when we multiply it by -1, what's my final answer? -3. Huh? You can't when it exits the signs, but you can't have an answer that's negative. So your answer when it exits those bars cannot be negative. But a final answer and a big problem can be negative because math can have whatever it wants. Okay? So, but right there, see how Jalen made that positive, then we did whatever is on the outside. So like this guy, absolute value of 4 and then minus 10. See, those absolute values are not very big, so it looks like 14. Okay, there you go. Absolute value of 4 and then minus 10. So what's the absolute value of 4? 4. What's 4 minus 10? Negative 6. And since that minusing 10 was outside the negative outside the absolute value, is it okay for 6 to be negative? Okay. Yeah, you're ahead of the game. Yep. What about this guy? How about 2 squared minus 8? Absolute value. Now with this guy, think of it like parentheses. You have to simplify the inside first before you deal with the absolute value. So what are we going to do first? Think of your order of operations. Yep. What's 2 squared? 4. So I keep my absolute value. So that's 4 minus 8. Now what do I do? Yep, do the subtraction. So what's 4 minus 8? It's negative 4. I still have my absolute values. Now that there's one number, you can do the absolute value. So what's my final answer? Just 4. Does that make sense? So you cannot apply an absolute value until there's only one number left on the inside, right? So that's why we learned our order of operations first, right? Because if not, this would be silly. You ready to see an actual problem? We'll flip her over. This is kind of how they look. It'll say evaluate. This is how the problem will be stated. Evaluate. And then this is the problem they'll give you. Absolute value of m plus 6. Close your absolute value. Make it nice and long. And then it says minus 14. After that, it says if m equals 4. So you see the problem, and then you see m equals 4. So what are we supposed to do, CJ? What do you think we're supposed to do first before we even do any math? All the way at the end. It says m equals 4. What do you think I have to do with that? CJ. You got a headphone in? I said CJ. So m is 4, yep. So what are we going to do with that? Yes, we're going to substitute 4 into this problem. So replace m with 4. 4 plus 6 in the absolute value, and then minus 14. Then CJ said add 4 and 6 together, right? So add them together. What's that number? Okay. So it says absolute value 10 and then minus 14. Now what are we going to do? First, technically, we should say there's one number in the absolute value. What's the absolute value of 10? It's just 10. Then we can do the subtraction, right? We wait until there's one number in the absolute value, then we do it. Derek, what's my final answer? Negative 4. Not bad? Pretty easy? Give you another one? Okay, this is exactly how it's written. It still says evaluate. Now it says 23 minus. Then it gives you the absolute value of 3 subtract 4x, close the absolute value. And it says if x equals 2. You want to do this one without me? Think you can do it? Okay. I'll take her a little, ooh, I kicked it. Do a little freeze. See if you get the same answer as me. I can fit that right there. I'll circle it. Okay. We get a double-digit answer. Did you get the same double-digit answer as me? It's at the bottom. I squished it in there. Don't be thrown off by that subtraction sign in front of the absolute value, right? You do not deal with it until after. The absolute value of -5 makes it positive, but that subtraction sign stays there. So you plugged in the 2, did the multiplication, did the subtraction. Once there's one number, take the absolute value. Then left to right, do the subtraction. 23 minus 5. Raise your hand if you got it right. Yes. Did we just mess up something little? Jesse, where'd you mess up? Oh, moved too fast for you. It's okay. Were you on the right path? Okay, so the cool thing is let me look. The first 3 problems are just like these. In the beginning, they'll say evaluate each expression and they'll tell you 3 different variables. F is this, G is this, H is this. So it depends on what you have, right? And then each equation has a different variable, so make sure you plug in the right one. The first one has H in it, so make sure you use the right number for H, right? Don't use the wrong number because then you'll obviously get the wrong answer. Okay? This is the first part. Now we're going to learn the second part. Okay? Still going to use absolute values, but now we're going to use them in an actual equation because we haven't used equal signs yet. Okay. Now, we talked about how absolute values have to equal a positive number, right? Absolute value of something always has to be a positive number. Yes, we talked about this? And that's the final answer. When we just have an absolute value by itself and one number, it has to be positive. So if I ever have this written down, we don't care what it is. If I had, hey, the absolute value of x plus 5, close your absolute value, equals -3. I don't care what the rest of this looks like. What's wrong with this equation? Jacoby. It says equals -3. An absolute value equals a -3. That can't be true, can it? Anytime you see this, you don't have to do any work. You go, this is wrong. You get to write no solution. Or the book, you can do this, a 0 with a line through it, the diagonal line. Those mean the same thing. Not possible. No solution. So if you automatically see an absolute value, nothing around it, equals a negative number, you just get to write that and you are already done with the problem. Which I'll give you a hint, 2 of your homework problems are like that. So you already cut your homework down to 7 problems. Okay? Not bad? Now, if it equals a positive number, we got to talk about that. I have this question for you. What's the absolute value of -3 again? 3. So the answer is positive 3, yes? What's the absolute? Wake up. What's the absolute value of positive 3? What do you notice about these two things? They have the same answer, right? So you can take the absolute values of a positive something and a negative something, and they give you the same answer, yes? So because of that, when we solve absolute value equations, we're going to have to solve it in two different ways because we can have two different answers for x's, which just adds a little extra work. But luckily, they're usually one-step, two-step problems, okay? So this is how this works. You always make, put a little star, when solving absolute value equations, you will always make two cases, period. Case 1 is going to be your positive case. That means your answer is going to equal a positive number. Case 2 is going to be your negative case. Just like up here, because we had a positive and negative numbers that made the same answer. Okay? And I could show you this in a very generic form, but it's confusing. So we're just going to do an actual problem. Okay? So example, the absolute value of x plus 5, close your absolute value, equals 17. So every time, once we got this all written down, we all got this written down. Jesse, you ready? Okay. I talk a little fast, write a little fast. Okay. So first thing we do every single time we do an example, you always look at this and go, okay, my absolute value, does it equal a positive number? Okay. If not, if it said equals a negative number, you would right away just write no solution, you'd be done, okay? So we always going to say, is it positive? Thumbs up, we're good, right? Once it's positive, the absolute value is there, we're going to automatically we're going to write case 1 and case 2. I just write them right next to each other. Okay? Now, case 1, we're going to take everything as it is, and my answer is going to be positive. And we do not need the absolute value anymore because the absolute value tells us we need two answers. That's all it does. So underneath case 1, I'm just going to write x plus 5 equals 17. Because we already know we're going to need two answers. So that's positive answer because 17 is positive. Then underneath case 2, I'm going to write x plus 5 still because that's my problem, but it's going to equal negative 17. Then we're just going to solve both of these equations. So if you want to start at case 1, it says x plus 5. How do I get rid of x plus 5? Yep, subtract 5 from both sides. Those 5 cancel out. You get x equals, what is 17 subtract 5? 12, okay? That's one of my answers. Now, case 2, it still says x plus 5, so to get rid of it, don't I still subtract 5? So the math here is the same. The answer is just going to be different because now we're doing negative 17 minus 5. What's negative 17 minus 5? Negative 22. Two different answers that make the same thing. If I wanted to check my answer, do you know how you would check your answers? Anyone know? Close. Well, yeah, first always make sure you got the case 1, case 2. Once you get these answers, plug them into the original problem. Take 12, plug it into up top. 12 plus 5. Is that 17? Absolute value 17, is that still 17? Okay, good. Then take the negative 22. Negative 22 plus 5, that's negative 17. When you take the absolute value of negative 17, do you still get 17? Yep, so that's how you can check. Last thing is how you actually write your answer. These are both answers for x, right? So with answers for x, you write your answer in bracket form, not in parentheses. It does not matter which one you write first. I just write the left one, then the right one. So you'd write 12, comma, negative 22. And we put them in brackets instead of parentheses. Do you remember how to make brackets? An S and a 2, yes, and then a 2 and then an S. Correct. Does anyone know? I'll give you a sticky for the answer. My honors kids couldn't remember right away for a second too. Does anyone remember why we use brackets instead of parentheses? These are both answers for x. So why would I use brackets instead of putting parentheses, 12 comma negative 2, negative 22? Yeah, you're talking about a point when you're talking about parentheses, right? If I see parentheses 5 comma 2, I'm thinking like a point on a graph, aren't I? When I think parentheses, but brackets mean these are my answers. Good job. Correct. Does that make sense? It may happen. I'm not going to make you, first of all, on your homework, it says it wants you to graph it. I'm not going to make you graph it. Also, if it ever makes you graph it, all it does is this. It'll give you a number line with all the numbers on it. Literally all you have to do is wherever 12 is on the number line, you put a point. Wherever negative 22 is, you put a point. That's it. You just put dots on the line. Yes. That's all that is as a graph. Is it just 2 points on the line because they're both x's. Okay? But I am not making you graph them, okay? So you do not have to graph them for your homework. Let's keep practicing. I mean, you will have to graph, but you're not going to have to graph these. Now, if you have to do it on your Alex topics, you'll have to do it on your Alex topics, which is why I explained it to you. Okay, let's try this one. I don't even know what example number I'm on. Let's just go with number 2. How about the absolute value of y plus 2 absolute value equals 4? So again, when we get one of these problems, what's the first thing we want to double check? Make sure that final answer is positive, is it? Okay, so now that it's positive, what are we going to do next? Make our 2 cases. Okay, what am I going to write under case 1? Jacoby, what am I going to write underneath case 2? Correct. Blake, how do I solve both of these? What am I going to do to get y by itself? Yes, I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. 4 minus 2 is just 2. Okay. I still subtract 2, right? Yep, still got to subtract 2. The math is still the same. The answers are just different, right? So you still subtract 2 from both sides. Negative 4 and negative 2 is negative 6. Katie, how do I write my final answer? Mm-hmm. And I should put a comma in between them? Okay. Yep, another bracket thingy. They just take practice, the brackets. Need me to get you one of those like little kid notebooks that like you trace your things for brackets? You sure? I'll make mine for you and copy it and let you trace it over and over and over again. Is that so bad? Not bad at all? Okay. What about this one? Absolute value of 2x minus 1 absolute value. See, this is why we make the lines bigger, because that 1 and the absolute value, they get confusing. Equals 7. Risa, what's the first thing we ask ourselves? Can we keep going? Okay. Now what am I going to do? Okay. What's my equation going to be for case 1, Jesse? What's my second equation going to be, Jesse? Mm-hmm. Now this one, there's 2 steps to solve these equations, aren't there? What do we do to solve these equations? What's the order of math we're going to have to do, Connor? Like looking at case 1, how do I slowly get x by itself? Yep, I first add 1 to both sides, so then I get 2x equals what? On the first one, case 1. What's 7 plus 1? Okay, now what am I going to do? Yep, both, well, actually 8 by 2. Yes, both sides by 2. Mm-hmm. What is 8 divided by 2? 4. Correct. Okay, Jalen, solve case 2 for me. Tell me what to do. Okay, what do I get? Negative 7 plus 1. It is negative 6. Gotta pay attention to our negatives. That's where it'll get tricky. Yep, divide both sides by 2. What do you guys an answer then? Negative 3. Is that it? It's my final answer that I'm done? What do I need to do next? Write them in brackets with a comma between them, because if not, it looks like 4 negative 3 with no comma. Or negative 34. Yes, sir. You can. I wanted to make sure we get both kinds in before I stop recording. Last one on the recording before we move on to the board. You ready? Number 4. You ready? Absolute value of 5x minus 3 absolute value equals negative 3. What you doing over there, CJ? What you doing? Huh? Huh. What did you number 4? Okay. We do it for us? Okay. Nothing, they're done. We're just waiting for you. You zoned out for a while, so we're just waiting. Is anyone here friends with Isaiah Barton? I did the same thing to Isaiah Barton. CJ, what is an absolute value always the answer of? Answer is always what? Not a specific number, positive or negative. Look at your problem. You can literally write not possible or no solution. It's okay, I get one person in every class every time. Actually, my honors kids, if it makes you feel any better, I got lots of them. This class, they all stopped and you were doodling, so I thought you were working, so then I was going to see if you were doing it. Good job, CJ. Okay, we'll do problems on the board.